Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for African News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the African Union announces it's ramping up efforts to help countries at the heart of West Africa's Ebola epidemic by sending in hundreds of medical staff. We head to Liberia for a look at the country's National Ebola Command Center. Also, a policeman's killed in the siege of a house on the outskirts of Tunis, which security forces suspect has been used as a base for Islamist extremists. This just 3 days before crucial parliamentary elections. And Botswana is also readying itself for a crunch vote. Friday's presidential poll will see the ruling party face its toughest challenge yet from opposition rivals. First up, the African Union's pledged to send more than 1,000 health workers to countries at the heart of West Africa's Ebola outbreak. So far, East African countries have committed 600 staff and more are expected to follow. The head of the AU said that the international community has, so far, been more focused on providing infrastructure to tackle an epidemic that's killed almost 5,000 people. Now, she's warned that there's still a desperate need for qualified medics on the ground. The race is also on to find new treatment for the deadly virus. The EU's earmarked over €24 million to find Ebola vaccines. Sierra Leone, Guinea and Liberia have been hardest hit. Katerina Vitozzi is in Monrovia, where EU experts have on Thursday been taking a closer look at what more can be done.
The EU mission spent the day in Monrovia visiting the key sites for the ongoing Ebola response. They started at the National Command Center, which has become the operational hub for national and international partners dealing with this ongoing Ebola crisis. Then they headed on to the world's biggest ever Ebola clinic, built and now run by NGO Doctors Without Borders, or MSF. The head of the mission, Dr. Agostino Miozzo, said he was impressed at the level of commitment to fight Ebola in Liberia, and he answered criticism that the response so far hadn't been joined up enough.
Here I see a selected number of international organizations, selected number of NGOs. I haven't seen the classical, I used to call the circus of the humanitarian operators or the international response. Here there is no circus. Here there are qualified, a number, great number. There are some risk of overlapping and duplication, definitely. This is rather normal. But again, the needs are enormous here, enormous.
The European Union is set to channel more than €500 million worth of aid into West Africa to tackle the region's ongoing Ebola outbreak. This mission, which was made up of humanitarian experts as well as military advisors, will recommend to senior EU officials how best that cash should be spent.
Katerina Vitozzi there for us in Monrovia. Witnesses in Nigeria say that suspected Boko Haram extremists kidnapped at least 25 girls from a remote town in the northeast. The attack casts doubt on the government's claims to have reached a ceasefire with the Islamist rebels. They've said that the deal included the militants' promise to release hundreds of schoolgirls taken captive in April, but there's still no sign of the girls being freed. Secret talks are still happening in Chad between Nigeria and a Boko Haram representative. Even so, the group is the prime suspect of a bomb explosion at a bus stop in the town of Azare in Bauchi State. At least 5 people were killed in Wednesday's blast. In Tunisia, at least 2 women and an unknown number of children are reported to have been caught up in clashes between security forces and suspected Islamist militants. They're believed to be inside a house in a suburb of Tunis that was surrounded by police on Thursday. One policeman was killed during the siege, which comes just 3 days before crucial parliamentary elections. Fearing possible terror attacks, Tunisia on Thursday said it's closing its borders with troubled Libya until the vote. Chris Moore is in the Tunisian capital for us.
Well, the security forces early this morning surrounding this house in Oued El-Il, a working-class part of the Tunis suburbs. They said there were 2 terror suspects inside, as well as a number of women and children. We understand they were acting on information gleaned from the arrest of 2 further terror suspects in the south of the country. All of this, of course, ahead of Sunday's parliamentary election. The Interior Ministry says there's no need for people to be unduly concerned.
We have the necessary security forces. Tunisia is ready for Sunday's election. No one can harm the electoral process. The Tunisian people are ready to move forwards.
Well, Tunisia has avoided the level of violence seen in many so-called Arab Spring countries, but people are concerned about security, particularly after this series of clashes near Mount Chambi on the Algerian border between jihadist elements and the security forces. Security, along with the economy, at the forefront of many people's minds going into this poll. As you saw, the Interior Ministry looking to reassure people, saying that a very heavy law and order presence will be rolled out ahead of the vote.
Chris Moore in Tunis. Political parties in Botswana have been making their final pitches to the electorate today ahead of Friday's crunch vote. It's been dubbed Judgment Day by local media, as it's the toughest battle the ruling parties face since independence. Nicolas Chemin has more.
The incumbent Ian Khama is the favourite to win the election. But it could be the most competitive poll yet for his party, the BDP, which has been in power since Botswana's independence from Britain in 1966. Khama's mother was English, while his father was the first president of Botswana, a country that ranks third in the Ibrahim Index of African governance.
There are no wars here. But the others, if they come to power, there will be bloodshed. So if you want to secure a peaceful future, you should vote for BDP.
He promises a peaceful future, but Khama, a 61-year-old former general, has been accused of becoming increasingly authoritarian and of threatening press freedom. And economic growth in the world's largest diamond producer is slowing. Unemployment is at 20%. One of his main rivals, Dumilang Salishando of the BCP, vows to boost the economy.
Spread the message to your neighbours, your relatives and workmates. Tell those with low-paid jobs that you have heard that the BCP will be creating jobs.
On Friday, 824,000 registered voters will elect 57 lawmakers. They will then designate Botswana's next president.
Algiers has been accused of deliberately trying to hamstring a French probe into the deaths of 7 monks killed in Algeria in 1996. The lawyer representing their families say authorities there prevented investigators from returning to France with DNA samples taken from the skulls of the monks, the only remains that were ever recovered. The men were executed after having been abducted from a monastery in TIBHIRINE, south of Algiers. The government's blamed their deaths on Islamist militants, but that assessment's never been confirmed. A look now at one of the ways female inmates in one Kenyan prison are being helped to deal with the stresses of life behind bars. The Africa Yoga Project's trained dozens of instructors. Some head into jails to lead classes, which they say make it easier for the women to serve out their sentences healthily and with peace of mind. Take a look.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
A yoga class in a maximum security prison. These Kenyan inmates practice the downward dog several times a month. Some of them are on death row. They say yoga helps them cope with their sentence.
You don't even have stigma. You are just relaxed. Yeah. You don't feel, you don't have stress even for the sentence. You are just okay.
Mary and many other inmates are HIV positive. They take strong antiretroviral drugs and say yoga gives them strength. Their teacher Margaret grew up in Nairobi's slums. She works for an NGO that funds yoga classes in jail.
These people that they've been doing such a crime, you know, killing their husband, stealing. So I thought, like, if I could take yoga into the prison, it could be amazing.
Like her, around 100 instructors joined the Africa Yoga Project, offering free classes in orphanages and community centres across the country.
Well, that wraps up African news, but do stay with us. A short break and more coming up. Take care.